Now, yesterday was going to be day 6 of the Enlightenment Study, but we had so many callers call in and ask questions on the forgiveness process that we didn't actually get around to the book yesterday. But Michael's already got a plan for what he wants to start when on the show today. I will remind everybody that we are running live on both Podbean and Blog Talk. So if you're in one of the other countries like Sweden or Poland or somewhere, you can connect through the Podbean app and it won't cost you anything to talk to us. And Michael's with us now, so I'm going to say welcome, Michael, and we do have a couple hands up before you get started on your plan.
Awesome. Thank you, sweetie, and welcome, everybody. Let's go ahead and talk to the hands.
All right. I believe this one is Susan, 610. You're on the air.
Just checking in to see how you're doing, Michael, with what happened yesterday.
I'm doing well, actually. Planning to talk more about the issue of death today, and so we'll see how that unfolds.
Good.
How are you doing?
Extremely tired, but there are reasons. I won't go into them. It's okay. All is well. Spent a lot of time up with my sister. She had to have an operation, and I was running her around to the hospital and various places. Then doing the refugees, so I'm not enough over this bug to be doing that much. So.
Well, take care of you.
Yep, doing it. But I hate
Holding
to miss
space.
any. Thanks. You've got your plan, so go for it, and I'll be listening.
All right, we'll do it. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
The other hand, I believe, is Doug, and I believe that he had talked with Dr. Tim, but I'll turn on his microphone just in case he wasn't finished. Doug, you're on.
Hey, hi. Yeah, I was just kind of talking to Dr. Tim right at the end for a little bit. I don't think I have anything right at the moment to say.
Cool.
Other than
hello, Doug.
Grateful to hear from you guys. Yeah. All right. Blessings.
Good to hear your voice. All right. Take care.
You too.
It's all yours. Take it away.
All right.
And you might adjust your microphone just a little because you're breathing in it.
Okay. How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Sensitive microphone. Well, welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're here. And for those who might not have been on the show yesterday, I shared that yesterday morning my sister, who was 80, because of a severe deterioration in a lot of suffering, opted to physician-assisted suicide and did that yesterday morning. And we got the privilege of getting to be with her during that process. And I've heard from several people since yesterday, one with condolences and appreciate you holding the space, and two, just addressing the whole issue of death. And I'd like to reinforce the idea that because one, that we're not physical bodies, that we're energetic beings, and two, that because the body goes doesn't mean we're gone. Yes, our vehicle of expression in this world has disappeared, but the truth is we are beings far, far beyond the physical, far beyond the instrument. And we need to, I think, forgive those misunderstandings and those trauma-based energies that have been passed down for generations and generations and have, pretty much taken over the world in terms of death. My offering is that when people are in pain and suffering, like any other pain or suffering, they're experiencing something inside of them. And to blame Death for that is no different than, saying I'm angry because Joe did this. You're not angry because Joe did this. You're angry because there's anger in you. And when you can own that, you can start to move through and start to let go of that anger. You're not sad or lonely or feeling lost because someone passed away. You're sad or lonely or feeling lost or disturbed because, one, there are unresolved energies with that person who's passed away, and two, you have unresolved thought disorders about death, about life. And so we can play this game. Remember, our cycle downward out of conscious awareness starts with denial. Speaking or thinking that something outside of us is the cause of what's moving inside of us. And when we do speak that, you made me angry, the real reason why anybody is angry at any time is because there is anger in them. A goal that they've loaded in their mind is frustrated by themselves or someone else is not fulfilled. That goal resonates anger when it's not fulfilled. And we project that anger into our brain's image of whoever it is, whether it's ourselves or someone else that didn't fulfill the goal. And so to say, Joe made me mad is to dissociate from the cause of my anger. To say death hurt me is to dissociate from the cause of my hurt. And so one of the things we do on a monthly basis is we have the MindShifters and Still Point Breathing Club, where once a month we get together with a group on Saturday morning at 11 o'clock and Sunday morning at 11 Eastern Time. And the group is just growing so strong. The processing, the support that's happening in it is awesome. And if you're ready to take your work to the next level, you might want to think about joining that group. But one of the things that we do is part and parcel of the MindShifters and Still Point Breathing Group is the MindShifter process. And we have what we call the ever-expanding MindShifter list. We're up, as of this month, to 21 sections of MindShifters, each with 13 MindShifters in it. One of those sections is on healing death. And so with the responses that I got yesterday, I felt like it was appropriate to go through those MindShifters and look at some other ways of thinking other than through pain and trauma when someone happens to leave their physical form. When we had the blessing of being with Jeannie's dad as he passed, and the sacredness of the energy in the room and the sweetness of the energy in the room, there's a whole, if we're in actuality, and this is true of virtually every moment of our lives, if we're in actuality, rather than substituting the constructs of our mind that are nothing more than reflections of past energetic patterns in our culture, in our family system that we're carrying inside of us, if we're actually in the moment, there's a whole different experience available with virtually everything, including death. And you remember the MindShifter is a tool that we teach that recognizes that the mind operates via resonance. And the law of resonance says when two energy fields are in tune or in harmony with each other, there's an exchange of information between them, resonance. So if I say don't think about the color of your car, and then through resonance, brain cells fire and something about the color of your car moves. Even if you're one of those wise guys, and I've had this happen in workshops before, I say don't think about the color of your car, and somebody said, well, I'm not thinking about it. Well, really, in order not to think about it, what did you have to think about? What had to move in your mind? There's no avoiding resonance. It's the way the mind works. And so these 21 different sets of MindShifters, each is topical. We go through different topics. And the idea of the MindShifter is to give you a thought that will resonate something that you need to process through in your mind in order to be free of carbon-based memories, constructs out of the past. And so if any of these MindShifters happen to ring true for you or resonate for you, I'd suggest that you put the pen to the paper And the way that a mind shifter is used, some people call them affirmations, except that my definition of an affirmation is taking a thought I don't believe and that isn't true for me and pretending that it is, trying to force it into existence. That's what people do with affirmations. And because the mind works by resonance, using a wonderful affirmation around an issue that you have some unconscious hidden energy about means that unconscious hidden energy resonates, and what resonates in your unconscious is what ends up creating the circumstances and the issues in your life. You know, you back to Yeshua, he says, you must forgive from your heart the wrongs of your brother, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. And that word heart there in our modern updated language would be the unconscious. So if you have the example I use in our prosperity, our workshop that's based on creating consciously, is if I affirm money, 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 I have abundance and wealth, but in my mind, in my file on abundance and wealth, I have poverty, then by affirming that, I resonate poverty and create more of it. So we shift out of using affirmations into taking the very same thought and turning it into a mind shifter and using it as a catalyst to resonate what's in my mind that perhaps I've hidden from myself. And when I do that, basically you take a mind shifter and you write it, you split the page in two, and on the left-hand side of the page you write the mind shifter, pardon me, and then on the right-hand side you write all of your mind's responses to it. You just kind of do a brain dump. No censoring, just let things rip. Let your mind just go through whatever resonates. And so the person who has a thought disorder around abundance, who affirms abundance, if the thought disorder, you know, the example that I use in that particular workshop is, as this kid's writing his mind shifter, he comes up with the memory that, you know, his mind shifter about abundance, he comes up with the memory of mom and dad having a big fight when he was a kid and dad leaving and never seeing him again. And so he starts to realize that, relationships and money are conflicted. And so being aware of that, I can now go to work in the thought disorders and clean that part of my mind up. So these mind shifters, and I'm just going to kind of read through them, and if you have any thoughts, questions, hit one, let's talk about it. But just to put forward a series of thoughts that may resonate for you, some things about death that perhaps you need to look at. Perhaps it would be good to forgive, and remembering that forgiveness doesn't mean I'm going to let you off the hook for what's moving inside of me. Forgiveness means if there's something untoward moving inside of me, I want to utilize the tool of forgiveness to go inside myself, access that which is moving in me directly, and remove it, rather than blame somebody else for it. So here are some of the mind shifters from the section on healing death in the ever-expanding mind shifters list. So the first one is, death is a safe and healing transition for me and those I care for to experience. Now, of course, most people's minds would say, what do you mean safe? What do you mean healing to die? That's crazy. And that's the idea of a mind shifter. So if that's what comes up in a mind, then we'd invite that mind to start writing what's on the right-hand side of the page. Well, death isn't healing. Death is the end of life. Well, death means it's over. Death means that I've lost everything. You know, what are all the thoughts there? And the idea is just to do a brain dump and take a look at what thoughts are there in your mind based in hostility or fear around death, and then determine what tools you're going to use to heal those thought disorders, to remove those energies based in hostility or fear. Ultimately, my offering is that every thought that we hold in our structure ideally would be a thought that comes from, is connected to, and supports us experiencing ourselves as love. And so if any of these thoughts resonate something for you other than love, then my invitation would be, take a pen, make a note, write the mind shifter down, spend some time with it. If you're working on a really serious issue, I suggest 2, 3, maybe even 4 hours of writing where you don't censor your thoughts at all. You just write and you just let yourself, everything that comes, you want to jot down on that page. And then when you complete the mind shifter, then you go back and you start looking at what came up. Oh, I didn't realize that I had that kind of thought in my mind. Ooh, I think I've got some forgiveness work to do around that one. Oh, I didn't realize this was connected in with Bill. I think I'll call Bill and work through this, do some responsibility communication. So once you've dumped your unconscious thoughts out on the page, done a full brain dump, then you look at what tools are you going to use to clean that up. Because when the frequency of death becomes the strongest resonance in you, you're going to die. And when you want to do your resonance with death, you can put an end to that. And you say, Michael, that sounds, nobody's ever done that. That's crazy. You can't do that. Well, I happen to trust the teachings of a man that 2,000 years ago walked through and out the other side, came through death unscathed. And then he said, and before I give the quote, let's look at the key word. He says, to those that overcome. Now, my offering would be, in the context of this conversation around mind shifters, is overcoming would look like forgiving everything that resonates in you around any given thought. So here's what Yeshua says. To he or she that overcomes, they will not taste of the second death. They will become a pillar in the temple and shall go out no more. What's a pillar in the temple? Obviously, a pillar is a fixture. The temple is this body, mind you. This is about what's going on inside of us. Will become a pillar and shall go out no more. And I'm not talking theology here. I'm talking about the actuality that you and I aren't designed for death. And we have records of people who are living 700, 800, 900, 1,000 years. And we say, oh, well, they were measuring time differently. No, they weren't. And if we went prior to that, we'd find that my offering would be people weren't dying. We're not designed. My offering is energy is eternal. I'm bringing this from the point of view of my physics training. Energy is eternal. It can neither be created nor destroyed. The only thing that can be changed about energy is the state of its organization. You don't have a body, you have an energy field. Listen once again to Einstein. On such things as matter, we've been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy. Energy whose vibrations have been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. Einstein says matter doesn't exist. So if matter doesn't exist, what do you have? You have a structure made of energy. Your eye creates a picture that looks like a body, so you believe it's this solid physical thing. And people say, well, of course it's solid. Look, I just clapped my hands together, and they stop each other. They must be solid. Well, if you understand resonance and energy, you would understand that your hands are resonating energy fields, and because they are in the same atomic magnetic range, they look solid to each other. But if you made your left hand, just do a thought experiment with me. Imagine that you make your left hand out of radio waves and you go to clap your hands together. What happens? The hand made out of radio waves passes right through the other hand. There's nothing solid in the other hand. It's mostly space. Energy moving in a way that the eye interprets as solid, but there's nothing solid there. And so when you realize that it's energy, the state of organization is rarely permanent because people are continuously engaging in energies that are not supportive of the integrated state of the form. Interestingly, going back to the Aramaic, the word that describes putting an energy into your structure, or any structure that doesn't belong in that structure, is called sin. Remembering that sin is an archery, and you miss the bullseye, the scorekeeper yelled sin, which simply meant you're off the mark. You've missed the bullseye. If I overcome the quote-unquote sin, the energies that are off the mark, that are causing my energy field to deteriorate and appear to die, what Yeshua says, if I do that work, overcome that energy that's off the mark, then I don't die. Shall not taste of death, but become a pillar in the temple of my God, and shall go out no more. In other words, you don't have to kill another body. That would be my offering of that. So if any of these thoughts bring up something for you to look at, then I invite you to mark it down and put it to work. So that's the first one. Death is a safe and healing transition for me and those I care for to experience. Second mind shifter out of our list of 13 is death is a fantasy created from thought disorders tied to fear and or hostility. So if we have a device that's made to incarnate human life, which I'd offer is love. If you hold a newborn, tap into the newborn, you know what human life is. Your energy field, your so-called body, is designed to house, to integrate, to be a space of expression for that love. If we buy into thought disorders, and there are plenty of them, if you just, sit in front of the TV for a few hours and notice the thought disorders that come charging out of that microphone. So this appearance we call death is actually a fantasy. Remember we talked at the beginning as we're talking about the Aramaic delineating between fantasies and actuality. What's true in the actual world as opposed to what kind of fantasies do we create with our minds. My offering is death is a fantasy. Well, somebody says, that's not much of a fantasy, there's a dead body over there. Okay, I hear you. And it's a result of a fantasy engaged in out of hostility or fear. And if I choose to do the work required to undo the hostility and fear-based mind energy that has literally, and for me, this is a choice I made many years ago, was a request to be shown how to access, face, and undo every bit of mind energy that has ever contributed to the death of anyone in my bloodline. My father, my mother, my grandparents, their parents, aunts, uncles. Am I willing to face those thought disorders and resolve them, forgive them? Third mind shifter in this particular group, healing all generational voices in me that cry out for vengeance or punishment heals death. You'll notice how deep the desire in our culture is by many people. I mean, just listen to the politics lately and hear the vengeance that's out there. In fact, people say, I am your vengeance. I'm gonna do it for you. Guess what? Those are the energetic patterns that kill people when they put them into their structures. So I'm willing to look here with this mind shifter, healing all generational voices in me that cry out for vengeance or punishment heals death. We live on the punishment planet. Everybody thinks, oh, well, somebody committed a crime, they should be punished. My offering is, no, somebody committed a crime. If that crime makes them a danger to society, then they should perhaps be isolated from the society. We call that prison, but not to punish them, rather to protect the society and to bring healing to them. That's the original idea of that whole penal system. Mind shifter number 4 in this section. Decisions lock me into a creation that has already passed and is the only thing that can kill me. Now take some brain cells to unwind this one. My offering is that decisions in the mind are nothing but resonance of content in the mind. If I say, don't think about the color of your car, and then I say, and now what are you thinking about? Most people say, well, I'm thinking about the color of my car. My offering is you weren't thinking about the color of your car, but energy regarding the color of your car moved as a result of resonance. That's not thinking. That's just cycling information in your mind. Truth is, most people said what they thought, they'd be speechless. So the mind is a decision-making device. If I said, what's your favorite food? Your mind would serve up a piece of information. Did you think of that? No. My question resonated, your file on favorite foods, and the mind made a decision. That is, it resonated one piece of information to the exclusion of the rest. Decide comes from the same root as suicide or homicide or fratricide. It means to cut off, to kill off. So the mind is a decision-making device. Resonance causes it to send forward information. And that's not thinking. Cycling information in the mind is not thinking. My offering is that thinking, my best understanding of thinking is that thinking is the ability to hold love, conscious, active, and present in your mind whenever something less is moving in you. That's a thinker. And when one can do that, one is automatically healing the thought disorders that are moving within their minds. So to let go of the need to live by the decisions of the mind and to be able to originate something in every moment takes us out of decisions and puts us into choice. If I simply go with decisions, then my decisions are a reflection of the past. And the only thing that can kill us are energetic patterns that are based in hostility and fear, and the past, for most people, is just littered with those thought disorders. So this mind shifter gives one an opportunity to begin to let go of the past and to be in a space where one is able to originate at every moment of their lives. Remembering that perception is nothing but a construct of the mind, what if I chose to free myself of perception and therefore the constructs of my mind, which are reflections of past energies? That's all perception is. And you go to the Course in Miracles, it says it very powerfully. Perception is a skill made up by us to take the place of what the Creator gave us in creation. Decisions are part of that process. Am I willing to move out of that and to actually become an original thinker? Because it's only those energetic patterns based in hostility or fear and the decisions that come from that in the mind that will keep us locked into that thing called death. Number 5, believing what my carbon-based memory tells me means that death is on the way. Once again, carbon-based memory, remember we have this storage system called carbon-based memory. It is the physiological ability to hold information from the past and repeat it. If I believe what's gone on in the past, then life is gone from that system. There is no life in the past. There is no future in the past. There's only replicating the past. Carbon-based memory tells us to do. And so recognizing that my belief in what carbon-based memory has to say fills the space of conscious awareness and doesn't leave room for originality. and therefore life. So that's another thought that will resonate and show what's stored in carbon-based memory through resonance that needs to be cleaned up. Sixth mind shifter, and again, if this resonates anything for you or question, then please push 1, raise your hand, and let's talk about it. And Jeannie, if somebody raises a hand, just jump right in and we'll see what the caller has to say. So mind shifter number 6 in this section. And by the way, if you would like, seeing as how we're on the topic of mind shifters and we've explained how to use it, right now we have 21 sections of mind shifters in this ever-expanding mind shifter list. And each mind shifter has 13 mind shifters in it, or each section. And so if before the show is over you'd like a mind shifter, and when we do the mind shifters and still point breathing workshop, or whenever I do breath work with people, I always invite them to write a mind shifter first so that they've got a catalyst to stir things up that they need to clean out of their minds. And the way that I assign mind shifters, and it always goes right to the core of what people need to work with, is I simply invite them to select 2 numbers. So if you'd like, before the show is over, we could call in and give us your 2 numbers. If you pick a number from 1 to 21, whatever comes to mind, whatever pops first for you, and then a second number from 1 to 13. So you'd end up with 2 different numbers, and those 2 different numbers would point you to a particular mind shifter. So if you've got 2 numbers you want to jot down, then before the show is over, we'll get into and pass out some mind shifters if you're interested. So of the 13 mind shifters in this particular list on death, mind shifter number 7 is both fear and hostility are the most important and easiest aspects of death to face and heal. I would offer that life cannot be killed by life. Life can only be killed by energies that disintegrate life, that are disintegrative in nature, and that is hostility and fear. So our invitation with this work is literally to disable your mind's ability to even move in circles of energy that are based in any form of hostility or fear. And it's hostility or fear that, relative to an energy field designed to incarnate and express love, that create disintegration of that field that we call the body. So this particular mind shifter has in it the recognition that hostility and fear are relatively easy to heal if we're willing to face them, and that those are the energetic patterns that ultimately cause the disintegration of this device designed to express love, that disintegration that we call death. To number 8, my willingness to face all of my generations of death-producing energies heals death in me. Again, this is a mind shifter that came from a piece of work that I began doing several years ago, where I became cognizant of the cause of death are energies that inhibit the flow of love through our cellular structure. Best definition I've been able to come up with of life is love flowing through a cell. Anything we do to inhibit love flowing through a cell is going to cause death. And so we know by the fact that everybody in your bloodline and mine that's over 100 is gone already, pretty much. And what is it that you inherited from them that caused them to die? And are you willing to face that in you, those energetic patterns that have inhibited the flow of love through their structures and tends to inhibit, if active, the flow of love through your structure? Are you willing to face those energetic patterns and free yourself of them? So this is number 8, my willingness to face all of my generations of death-producing energies heals death in me. Death is healable. Energy systems are not designed to die. Now, I know everybody's bought it and everybody's doing it, so it must be true. I don't believe it's true. Now, I might be mistaken, and you might say, Michael, that's foolish. Okay, you could consider it to be foolish to entertain that understanding. But here's my offering. If I'm right that facing every energy of death in you will heal you of death, then you've got everything to gain by tapping in and believing that and doing the work required. If I'm in error, so what have you lost? You've gotten rid of hostility and fear. If your lifespan's only going to be 100 or less anyway, well, what have you lost by believing that or understanding that you could be eternal? Well, you've lost the capacity for hostility or fear. You've removed the thought, the mind energy of hostility or fear. It seems like you're a winner either way with that one. Number 9, facing and healing all power person issues frees me from the cause of death in me. These generational patterns of hostility or fear that are passed father to son, mother to daughter. Am I willing to face those power person messages? And, the initial phase of most power person messages almost always includes a thought disorder along the lines of, you're broken, there's something wrong with you, you could never be repaired. That's the kind of power person message that is given to the child, even by parents who deeply cherish their children. One of the things that Aria learned from us very easily in hearing us, and if a thought came up that was based in hostility or fear, one of the tools that we use is that of canceling that thought. And Aria, she's 5, oftentimes will perk up and say, if Jeannie and I come up with a negative thought, we'll say, cancel that thought. And so the idea here is that the automatic power person messages that most people have received, they're almost like, if you imagine a fish swimming in water, is the fish aware of the water? Like it's so much a part of the environment, it's just part of it. For most people, their power person thought disorder, part of the environment, it's like it's a given, it's assumed, it must be true because this God called my power person gave it to me. And so the invitation here is to recognize that if you were given any messages by your power person, and again, those messages usually start out with something about how you're broken, and to heal those thought disorders is going to literally remove the energetic pattern of death from your structure. Number 10, taking down my walls gives me a chance to heal death through enlightenment. So if I built any kind of walls against full experience and full expression of myself and others as love, by forgiving us to those walls, by removing those energetic patterns, I'm going to make a space for the presence of love to come into deeper and deeper integration into my cellular structure. Yeshua, and he said, I am the light of the world, speaking of himself. And then he also said, and the only thing he changed was the pronoun, nothing else about that sentence was changed. He said, you are the light of the world. If we are holding thoughts of darkness, thoughts based in hostility or fear or brokenness, then we're stuck in an energetic pattern that does not belong in a human mouth, in a human mind, or in human physiology. It just doesn't belong there. So we're willing to face those patterns and literally remove them. Mind shifter number 11. I was designed by love and have the power, when willing, to transmute death-producing energies. Now, I've shared many times over the years the moment at which I was instructed on what the core of healing was. This goes back some 30-some years ago at Heartland in an intensive. And watching someone go through a miraculous healing process and then asking the question, why did this person in this space heal at this moment? Everybody else in the room had their stuff, but they didn't all heal. Why did that one heal? And what I was shown in that moment, asking that question, was that all healing requires two things. One, it requires the active presence of love. That is, the presence of a truly human life. And two, the thought disorder that's hidden in physiology, hidden in the unconscious, has to come forward. Two things meet, there is a transmutation of energy. Transmutation simply meaning change, a shift. And so this mind shifter is based in recognizing that the core design of you as a human being is that of love. And part of the power of the presence of that act of love, if I'm willing to look at death-producing energies, is to transmute or to change the quality of those death-producing energies. So again, number 11 is, I was designed by love and have the power, when willing, to transmute death-producing energies. And then on to number 12 on this section on healing death. I am aware of and quickly heal all speech and behaviors reflecting thought disorders. So, one of the things we've talked about oftentimes over the years is I need to become the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions. When I can step back and observe my own mind and physiology in operation, then I can become cognizant of the quality of energy that I'm engaging in. So this particular mind shifter is meant to step into deeper levels of willingness and awareness and recognize that if there is the frequency of speech coming out of my mouth that is indicative of a thought disorder, then I can heal and change that speech and or behaviors that are reflective of thought disorders. And a thought disorder, once again, anything based in hostility or fear relative to an energy field designed for love is a thought disorder. Any mind energy. We go to the opening words in the book of John. It doesn't say in the beginning was the Word and the Word became flesh. It says in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. So if I hold an energy anywhere in my structure that doesn't belong there, when I'm willing to breathe and observe myself, if I observe my speech reflecting the frequency of death, hostility or fear, or behaviors that reflect the energies of death, then by being aware and choosing to breathe and do the forgiveness process, I can heal those thought disorders. I can remove those energetic patterns, which ultimately is going to lead to literally the healing of death. And then, number 13, all thoughts and or emotions reflecting death remind me to connect with my source. So, here we're setting in the mind a reminder that if I do language or engage in something less than love, in that moment is the moment in which I can remember that my source is love, and I can connect with that active present love. So when I recognize that my source is conscious, active, present love, then I have the opportunity to heal by bringing myself back into resonance, back into harmony with that conscious, active, present love. So that's the MindShifter set on healing death. And we're down to about 15 minutes, so it would be awesome if that's resonated anything for you. If there are any questions or thoughts, push one. Let's have a conversation about it. How can we support you? Does that make sense? That last one, once again, all thoughts and or emotions reflecting death remind me to connect with my source, conscious, active, present love. The sections, as I said, we've got 21 sections of MindShifters here, are just run the whole gamut of aspects of life that we need to face and deal with as human beings. And so, Ms. Jean, do we have anybody out there in the phone queue with a hand up? Anything happening in the chat room?
No, not at the moment. We don't. We do have another section down, number 615, about healing issues around people dying.
Yes.
It's totally another set of 13 around that. Oh, we had a hand just now go up.
Okay, let's go for it.
Celinda, 541, you're on the air.
Yes, I would love a mind shifter, and since you have been aware of the issues that I'm dealing with in relation to my brother's passing, if he goes, can you think of a mind shifter that might be specific for me? Otherwise, I'll just choose.
Well, what I usually suggest, again, the best way to key in, because it's not something that one figures out.
Okay.
It's just, what's the first number that comes to your mind from 1 to 15 or 1 to 21?
7.
7. And then a second number from 1 to 13.
5.
So 7-5, let's see what that is. 7-5 is, it's safe for me to invite the darkest, it's always really interesting how picking these numbers just goes right to the core. So this particular mind shifter is, it is safe for me to invite the darkest parts of my family history to come to awareness and heal.
Okay, I'm going to write
That
this
might be
down.
one of the biggest, yes, that might be one of the biggest gifts you could give to your brother. It is safe for me to invite the darkest parts of my family history to come to awareness and heal. And basically your question was about, healing this generation, and that section is section 7, as you selected it, is on healing generations. It is safe for me to invite the darkest parts of my family history to come to awareness and heal.
I wouldn't mind.
What's happening with your breath?
I was in between because I just had a thought. I want to pass it by you, and whatever you choose is fine with me. I would love to be part of everything that you offer, and it is not. I find it not what I'm being led to do in relationship to my life at this time. And so I was wondering if I could choose to be a part of the group just on my own when I have a private moment to do a mind shifter for myself, because I feel pretty comfortable with the process of the mind, not the mind shifter, the still point breathing. Would I be able to access these 21 this mind shifter sheets that you're doing, maybe with a donation, or however I could do that, or would that be not possible? Because it wouldn't go with what you understand as the process.
I can offer you an in-between. Basically, we've committed to the MindShifters and Still Point Breathing group that this is for their use only. It's only shared with them. So I couldn't, in integrity, send it to you. However, anytime you're ready for a mind shifter, I'm quite happy for you to call, and we'll give you your selected numbers at this point. Basically, each month it increases. Like, we're up to 21 sections right now. Next month it'll be 22. The next month it'll be 23. So anytime you want to select a pair of numbers and let me know, I'll be happy to share that mind shifter with you. But otherwise, it's committed to the Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing group. So
that's perfect, and I'm perfectly happy if you present that to the group too, to make sure that everyone in the group is feeling the same way, because I certainly do not want to violate the sanctity of that still point breathing process you're in.
Cool. Well, again, anytime you've got a pair of numbers, let me know and we'll pass it on. You can just send me a text and I'll look it up and send it to you.
Thank you, sir.
And when you said you were in between, when I asked you about breathing, did that mean that you were holding your breath?
I'm not sure. In all honesty, was I in between or holding? I just don't know, because a thought popped into my mind. This is a possibility. I have noticed that whenever I'm thinking, or whatever that is that I'm doing, that I hold my breath. And I was wondering if that's the clue that I'm misthinking in light of what you call thinking over here, which I wrote down. So I offer that. Maybe we could explore that. That would be cool.
Yeah. My offering would be what I've noticed over the years, and usually if somebody selects the right mind shifter, then they stop breathing because it resonates something they don't want to deal with. So here's my understanding of holding your breath, and that is that the mind functions through every cell in the structure, and the stuff that we don't want to deal with, we have held the breath and shut it down and locked it down into the energy field, lock it down into the body. And so when somebody says, and that's usually the response is, oh, well, I'm just thinking, that's why I'm holding my breath. Well, my interpretation, my understanding of I'm just thinking is, I have this safe part of the database that is from the neck up. I've got information stored there that I've already determined is safe for me to look at any time. If something resonates, anything in the rest of the database that's not safe to look at, I shut my breath down and I'm looking in the safe part of the database. And the holding the breath is the indicator that something wants to move from that deeper level, and inhibiting the breath is shutting it down. That would be my explanation of it.
And also I have two other observations that I might share with you in case you have some insight. One is that my default mode is very shallow breathing, and I can breathe deeply when I'm putting my conscious attention on it. Perhaps you can advise me in relation to that. However, the minute my awareness goes away, it goes back to shallow. The other thing that I have noticed
let's do one at a time. So my understanding of that is shallow breathing, which most people do, or subventilating, means there's lots of stuff in here that I just don't ever want to look at, and so I keep it shut down.
good. And then the other thing I noticed is that, and I observed this while teaching yoga, is that the people in my classes, when they discovered they were breath holders, it seemed to follow two patterns. They either held their breath on the in-breath, or they would hold their breath on the out-breath. I'm an in-breath holder. Would you have any observations or inspirations about that?
Well, interesting word, inspiration. Let's inspire together. I don't have any insight in that regard. I just notice when people are holding the breath. I've never particularly paid attention to whether it's on the in-breath or the out-breath. In my awareness at this point, there's no difference, and there might be a difference that I'm just not aware of.
And it's
so that's an interesting observation.
There's very interesting that there's a lot of emphysema in my family, and I believe you were the one that said emphysema is where we can breathe in, or but can't breathe out, or it's asthma, one of the two, because I have possibilities for both. My parents were smokers, and also asthma is definitely an aspect in my dis-ease structure that I'm dealing with. I manage it.
Yeah.
No meds.
Well, having been spent much of my life and as a kid, having, pretty much every year spent the first 2 weeks of school in an oxygen tent rather than a schoolroom due to asthma. I know that one pretty well, and for me it was totally and completely emotionally based. And I can remember the day that asthma pretty much left me, and that was the day that I got in touch with being belittled by my father and being forced into a corner and shut down. And that was the resolution of asthma for me.
Right. One real quick, because I know we're going to be cut off, is that dairy will give me asthma, and my main power person issues are my mother. So go figure.
Yeah. Well, and dairy is a congester. If you look at dairy products, they tend to be, in fact, one of the main features of dairy is it tends to create mucus, which restricts and congests. So that's why people who have sensitive lungs will tend to be sensitive to dairy, because it creates all kinds of mucus and restriction of flow of breath in the body.
Thank you.
All right.